Bill Gates hardly fought his way up from the gutter. Raised in a prosperous Seattle household, his mother was a homemaker who did charity work, his father a successful lawyer. But beneath the affluence and comfort of a perfect American family, a competitive spirit ran deep.
I ended up spending the Memorial Day weekend with him out on his grandmother's house on Hood Canal. She turned everything into a game. It was a very, very, very competitive environment.
One time was funny. I went to Bill's house, and he really wanted to show me his jigsaw puzzle that he was working on. And he really wanted to talk about how, like, he did this jigsaw puzzle in, like, 4 minutes. And, like, on the box, it says, if you're a genius, then you would do the jigsaw puzzle in, like, 7. And he was into it. He's like...
And he badly needed a shower that day.
The scene is set. In California, laid-back Gary Kildall, already making the best-selling PC operating system, CP/M. In Seattle, Bill Gates, maker of BASIC, the best-selling PC language, but always prepared to seize an opportunity.
So IBM had to choose one of these guys to write the operating system for its new personal computer. One would hit the jackpot. The other would be forgotten, a footnote in the history of the personal computer. And it all starts with a telephone call to an 8th-floor office in that building, the headquarters of Microsoft, in 1980.
At about noon, I guess, I called Bill Gates on Monday and said I would like to come out and talk to him about his products.
Bill said, well, how's next week? And they said, we're on an airplane, we're leaving in an hour, we'd like to be there tomorrow. Well, hallelujah, right on.
Steve Ballmer was a Harvard roommate of Gates. He had just joined Microsoft and would end up its 3rd billionaire. Back then, he was the only guy in the company with business training. Both Ballmer and Gates instantly saw the importance of the IBM visit.
And Bill said, Steve, you better come to the meeting. You're the only other guy here who can wear a suit. So we figured, okay, the two of us will put on suits, and we'll go to this meeting.
We got there roughly 2 o'clock. And we were waiting in the front, and this young fellow came out to take us back to Mr. Gates' office. I thought he was the office boy. And of course, it was Bill. He was quite decisive. We popped out the non-disclosure agreement, the letter that said that he wouldn't tell anybody we were there and that we wouldn't hear any secrets and so forth. He signed it immediately.
IBM didn't make it easy. You had to sign all these funny agreements that sort of said IBM could do whatever they wanted, whenever they wanted, and use your secrets however they felt. But so it took a little bit of faith.
Jack Sams was looking for a package from Microsoft containing both the BASIC computer language and an operating system. But IBM hadn't.
So Bill, right there with them in the room, called Gary Kildall, Digital Research, said, Gary, I'm sending some guys down. They're going to be on the phone. Treat them right. They're important guys.
The men from IBM came to this Victorian house in Pacific Grove, California, headquarters of Digital Research, headed by Gary and Dorothy Kildall. Just imagine what it's like having IBM come to visit. It's like having the Queen drop by for tea. It's like having the Pope come by looking for advice. It's like a visit from God himself. And what did Gary and Dorothy do? They sent them away.
Gary had some other plans, and so he said, well, Dorothy will see you. And so we went down, the 3 of us.
IBM showed up with an IBM non-disclosure, and Dorothy made a decision which I think it's easy in retrospect to say was dumb.
Well, we popped out our letter that said, please don't tell anybody we're here, and we don't want to hear anything confidential. And she read it, and she said, I can't sign this.
She did what her job was. She got the lawyer to look at the non-disclosure. The lawyer, Jerry Davis, who's still in Monterey, threw up on this non-disclosure. It was uncomfortable for IBM. They weren't used to waiting, and it was an unfortunate situation. Here you are in a tiny Victorian house that's overrun with people and chaotic. And
so we spent the whole day in Pacific Grove debating with them and with our attorneys and her attorneys and everybody else about whether or not she could even talk to us about talking to us. And we left.
This is the moment Digital Research dropped the ball. IBM, distinctly unimpressed with their reception, went back to Microsoft. Bill Gates isn't the man to give a rival a second chance. He saw the opportunity of a lifetime.
Digital research didn't seize that, and we knew it was essential. If somebody didn't do it, the project was going to fall apart. So
we just got carried away and said, look, we can't afford to lose the language business. That was the initial thought. We can't afford to have IBM not go forward. This is the most exciting thing that's going to happen in PCs. And we just told IBM, look, we'll go get this operating system from the small local company. We'll take care of it. We'll fix it up. And you can still do a PC.
Tim Patterson's operating system, which saved the deal with IBM, was, well, adapted from Gary Kildall's CPM.
In fact, the only obvious external difference is the floppy drive is labeled A in PC-DOS and C in CPM. Some difference, and yet one generated billions in revenue and the other disappeared. As usual in the PC business, the prize didn't go to the inventor, but to the exploiter of the invention. In this case, that wasn't Gary Kildall. It wasn't even Tim Patterson.
There was still one problem. Tim Patterson worked for Seattle Computer Products, or SCP. They still owned the rights to QDOS, rights that Microsoft had to have.
But then we went back and said to them, look, you know, we want to buy this thing. And SCP was, like most little companies, they, you know, always needed cash, and so that was when they went into the negotiation.
And so ended up working out a deal to buy the operating system from him for whatever usage we wanted for $50,000.
Hey, let's pause there to savor an historic moment.
For whatever usage we wanted for $50,000.
It had to be the deal of the century, if not the millennium. It was certainly the deal that made Bill Gates and Paul Allen multi-billionaires and allowed Paul Allen to buy toys like these, his own NBA basketball team and arena.
Microsoft bought outright for $50,000 the operating system they needed, and they turned around and licensed it to the world for up to $50 per PC.
This building right here is where the IBM PC was developed.
Here, the nerds from Seattle joined forces with the suits of corporate America, and in that first honeymoon year, they pulled off a fantastic achievement.
After we got a package in the mail from the people down in Florida.
As August 1981 approached, the deadline for the launch of the IBM Acorn, the PC industry held its breath.
Supposedly,
this is a moment of PC history. IBM's secrecy had codenamed the PC the Floridian Project. Everyone in the PC business knew IBM would change their world forever. They also knew that if their software was on the IBM PC, they would make fortunes.
Note that the attached information is not to be disclosed prior to any public announcement.
After years of thinking big, today IBM came up with something small.
Computer. Big Blue is looking for a slice of Apple's market share. IBM
like bits and bytes mean nothing. Try this word. Money.
Now they're going to sell $1,000 computers to millions of customers.
A piece of the pie. I have seen the future, said one analyst, and it computes.
Today, an IBM computer has reached a personal...
Nobody was ever fired for buying IBM. Now companies could put PCs with a name they trusted on desks from Wall's End to Wall Street.
What IBM said was...
For all the hype, the IBM PC wasn't much better than what came before. So while the IBM name could create immense demand, it took a killer application to sustain it. The killer app for the IBM PC was yet another spreadsheet. Based on VisiCalc, but called Lotus 123, its creators were the first of many to get rich of 500,000 computers by 1984. In those 3 years, they sold 2 million.
Yeah! Euphoric, I guess is the right word. Everybody was believed that they were not going to, at that point, 2 million or 3 million, you know, they were now thinking in terms of 100 million. I mean, they were probably off the scale in the other direction.
What did all this mean to Bill Gates, whose operating system, DOS, was at the heart of every IBM PC sold? Initially, not much because of the deal with IBM, but it did give him a vital bridgehead to other players in the PC marketplace, which meant trouble in the long run for Big Blue.
The key to the structure of our deal was that IBM had no control over our licensing to other people. And the lesson of the computer industry in mainframes was that over time people built compatible machines or clones, whatever term you want to use. And so really the primary upside on the deal we have with IBM, because they had a fixed fee We got about $80,000, and we got some other money for some special work we did, but no royalty from them. And that's the DOS-in BASIC as well. And so we were hoping a lot of other people would come along and do compatible machines.
There were other PCs that were sort of like the IBM PC, kind of like it, but IBM now had 50% was IBM PCs.